He began whistling, and it took a few seconds, but then they caught on. As they flew away from the site where they had almost died, the Nightstalkers all pursed their lips and whistled away. Always look on the bright side of death.
"We were lucky," Peter said.
Miss Jones sighed, which was difficult to do with all the tubes stuck in her body. Any movement brought discomfort. A lot of movement brought pain. She'd lived with the situation for years, and she hoped, but did not pray, that she had several more years. Unfortunately, she was a realist, and she knew time cared as little for her hopes as it would for her prayers. She kept the speaker on, and in the background they could hear the team whistling that part of "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life," but there was that edge to it. It was forced.
"Was it luck the warhead was activated?"
Miss Jones asked her assistant.
"If we say there is luck, then isn't one as likely to have bad luck as well as good luck?" "It was those fools who bought the silo that caused the problem," Peter said. "More so, it was whoever left that warhead in the silo." "Which brings up an interesting point,"
Miss Jones said. Her office was dimly lit, and was actually a room behind the office where she met each new Nightstalker, and in-briefed them and held debriefings with Moms and Nada. She'd been impressed when Doc had quickly surmised that the shadowy image sitting in the dark shadow on the other side of the desk was usually just an image, not a person. Not that it mattered. She always said what she needed to, and she could see and hear everything pertaining to the Nightstalkers from her hospital bed.
"And that point is,"
Peter pressed, making her realize her thoughts had drifted off, which concerned her, as it was happening more and more. It was a luxury of the elderly, but a person in her position could not afford that luxury.
"What if the nuclear warhead being left there wasn't a mistake?" she asked.
In the background, the whistling had petered out, and there was no sound coming out of the speaker except the muted roar of the snake's engines. Miss Jones turned the speaker off.
"Here in the Nightstalkers, we are so used to ascribing incidents to mistake or oversight or scientific malfeasance. We rarely consider that often there are those who scheme and plot and act, sometimes in ways counter to what we believe is in our country and mankind's welfare."
Peter frowned. He glanced over at the various machines helping to keep Miss Jones alive, scanning their various lights and indicators. He'd been doing this for so many years that anything amiss would have screamed out at him. All was within normal parameters. Peter spoke with less of a Russian accent than Miss Jones, but that was because he left Area 51 and interacted with other Americans. Miss Jones had not left the ranch in 8 years. Peter was a former Russian helicopter pilot whose life Miss Jones had saved by stopping him from overflying Chernobyl, telling him it was a one-way mission, even while she risked her life to save the man who'd started the chain reaction of that disaster back in 1986. Peter was a tall, rugged-looking man with graying hair. He had perfect teeth that he revealed often when he smiled. That was why Miss Jones knew he could never replace her. The smile. The person who ran the Nightstalkers rarely had anything to smile about. He was good at his job as her assistant, but the mantle of leadership was not something she could drape around his shoulders. That a former Soviet nuclear engineer was in charge of the Nightstalkers and had a former Soviet helicopter pilot as her aide was as improbable as an actor who had played the Gipper in Newt Rockney All-American becoming the 40th President of the United States. Probably less so.
"You suspect a plot?"
Peter asked, intrigued. Miss Jones was not given to idle speculation.
"This weapon was listed as destroyed," Miss Jones said. "That's not a simple oversight of forgetting it in the silo. Someone also deliberately wiped out any trace of it by recording it as having been dismantled. One event is an oversight. 2 is a plan."
"If it is a plan," Peter said, "it is a very old plan."
"When I heard the year 1962, I knew right away what the code name was," Miss Jones said. "Operation Ortsack is in the nuclear protocol binder. What is not in the binder is what didn't happen. General LeMay was the Chief of Staff of the Air Force at the time. He advocated preemptive nuclear warfare from the moment he had any voice in the matter.